Leviticus 13, Part 4. After God gave instructions for the treatment of skin diseases, God then gave instructions for the treatment of contaminated clothing. God said that if a woolen or linen garment is contaminated with mildew or a leprous plague and the fabric has turned greenish or reddish, then it must be shown to the priest. The priest will then examine it and then put the fabric in quarantine for 7 days. And in the 7th day, it will be inspected again. And if the infected area has spread, then the item is clearly contaminated and is ceremonially unclean. The priest must then burn the item and it must be completely destroyed by fire. But if the priest observes that the infected area has not spread on the item after the quarantine period, the item must be washed and then put in quarantine again for another 7 days. The priest will then examine the item again, and if the infected area has not changed color, then it has been contaminated and is ceremonially unclean even though the infected area has not spread. It must then be burned up and completely destroyed by fire. But if the priest sees that the infected area has faded in color, then the infected portion must be cut out. But if the infectious spot appears again on the item, then it is clearly spreading, and the item has been contaminated and is ceremonially unclean. It must then be burned up and completely destroyed. But if the spot disappears after being washed, then it must be washed again and the item is now ceremonially clean. And these are the instructions for dealing with mildew or leprous plague that contaminates any clothing or fabric, whether they are woolen, linen, or leather. And these instructions will guide the priests on how to determine whether these items are ceremonially clean or unclean. And that's